Hello everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Strange Times. Today, as in every other edition of the show, we feature scholars and people doing things with science to talk about what they are confused about. And nevertheless, each episode is themed after a particular confusion of mine, normally, because I'm the one selecting the speakers, and you will feel somehow related to the situation when you start with your computer and something stops working and you see how chaotic it is. Well, imagine that at a scale that is country or worldwide or Europe-wide. As you know, we pretty much depend on the technology coming from the US, and there are many questions related to this. So to discuss this topic today, I brought two fantastic guests. Please receive Daria Vernon De Mars and Nele Leosk. Welcome. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, that's such
You
a
feel
warm
good?
welcome. Wow.
Oh man, the audience is going crazy for you. So, to briefly introduce yourself, Nele, you are a policy leader fellow here, but you're also you were also a former digital ambassador of Estonia. And Daria, you are a research associate at the Florence School of Banking and Finance, and you're also doing your PhD at UniFI, so University of Florence. And we can start with our respective confusions. So who wants to jump in? What are you confused about?
I guess I can briefly start. I guess I would start with probably heavy hitter, maybe, and then we get a little sillier by the minute. But I guess the thing that confuses me, and it's also related to what I'm trying to, get my bearings and studying in my work in general, is that the gap that we continue to witness between the how fast we're developing and regulating cyber technologies or digital technologies and AI, and how slowly actually our democratic systems are adapting to that, or at least from what I can assume. Because we do take for granted that our existing structures that we have in place, particularly the ones within representative democratic forms of governments, are enough to keep these processes accountable. But these technologies are indeed evolving very quickly, and they're highly technical. And more often than not, we see that the decisions around them are concentrated in small circles of experts and institutions. So I guess the question that's been twirling in my head as of late is if our traditional forms of democratic oversight are still sufficient and appropriate and adequate in this cyberspace, or do we need to think or start thinking or try to figure out how to make legitimacy and accountability work when it comes to governing cyberspace and digital technologies and AI.
And my question would be, do you think it's feasible with these guys holding the grip so hard, these tech moguls that I don't see they are very keen on letting people
I think we would have to hope that it is. Otherwise, if we don't strive for that, then I guess we just, we shouldn't even be questioning or striving to regulate or, to attempt to, get these technologies under, some form of oversight. If we just say, okay, well, it's a lost battle to begin with, then I guess it all become kind of pointless to even be here and talking about it. At least that's my very personal view.
Nele, do you have a take on this? You have been working with many of these companies and I guess people doing things to try to tackle this very same question, correct?
Yes, as you said, I have been touching upon tech and geopolitics in my recent years. I would say 5 to 7 years now for the European Commission, before as Estonia's Ambassador for Digital Affairs. But before that, I was actually very devoted to digital innovation and particularly digital governance. This was also my PhD topic a long time ago here at CUI. But and I will maybe respond through my puzzle, or let's say something that maybe puzzles me is that around 30 years ago, I believe it was 1993. Around 1993, the browser was invented and made internet available to everybody. Of course, we have had developments before, but this, I would say, was one of these sort of breaking points. And after that, we saw quite a bit of digitalization happening at a large scale. There have been governments very successfully using new technologies to improve governance, services, build their own digital ecosystem. Of course, Estonia, where I come from, is also one of these countries known for this. But we are 30 years after this, and I am actually surprised that we still have such a big gap between those that really embrace digital technologies and those that do not embrace it. So I would say that there is a big gap in this, let's say, digital transformation or digital development largely. And of course, the gap is now getting quite big in terms of who has tech power and who has not tech power. And I think we will come back to this later when we maybe go to more geopolitical aspects of technological developments. But connectedly, actually, by now, when we look at governments, we in a way know what it takes to digitalize. It's not no news anymore. But still we are not managing as well as I thought we all would be doing by now. And perhaps this takes me to maybe that take is that for a long time, and also today, we are as a public, as people, we are talking about regulating tech, how to keep it evolving in a certain way, and that is all very much needed work. But I think to be competitive, to look for a brighter future, we would actually need to really shift the focus on how we can embrace it and perhaps take risks, because we cannot, I would say, manage to continue without these technologies. So I put a bit different maybe angle.
Yes, you put so many, and I have a lot of follow-up questions, but I will follow with the tradition of the show, which is to start with the confusion. So now I will go to yours, Nele. What are you confused about?
Yeah, I guess I will go then back to my previous answers. I'm confused about the gap that we have, and actually how little we use technologies. So let's even take the artificial intelligence. There is a lot of talk about it. Of course, it comes with certain risks, perhaps big dangers. But when I really start to look for these innovative practices of AI, and AI can do so much good. It can improve personal medicine, for example, to find people with high breast cancer risks and attend to these people before. It can do a lot of things, but I would say that we are talking more about it than we are doing about it. And
what do you think we should be doing then? Policy-wise, let's say, because you say that we have the solutions pretty much at the tip of our fingers, but it seems complicated, right? I don't know if you're referring to this issue of digital dependency in particular.
I was not maybe relating to dependencies. These are there. Some of these we can eliminate, some of these we can reduce, maybe not even eliminate, but we can definitely work on this, how we build our digital infrastructures, how we build our digital society so that we wouldn't be too dependent, and of course that everybody feels good in this, let's say, virtual world. But from the policy perspective, I think, and this is one of the reasons why tech diplomacy became or has become also higher in agendas of many governments, is actually that the fact that these technological developments take increasingly place in very few countries, and I would say also increasingly in few companies. So it is also increasingly more difficult to make sure that the people, no matter which country we come from, have these necessary skills and capacities to use these technologies or even perhaps develop or innovate them. So I think there are two sides. One is really to develop these technologies, and the other is that you have the necessary skills or even to build the infrastructure needed to develop the digital society.
If I may say something, like piggyback it real quick from what you've been saying so far, that I think is very, very topical, and just a very general comment. Obviously, like I wouldn't know how to provide a solution here, but what you were saying were really striking to me, because I think the core point is that at the beginning of the millennium, or even before that, you know, in the late 90s, we were witnessing this new thing being created, the internet. So, and that showed such promise, and it seemed that to be something to put that was, you know, on the verge of putting, you know, real sort of revolutionizing the way we get involved as a society, and real horizontal evolution. And instead, we see nowadays that we actually even accentuated even more the asymmetries that at the beginning we thought it was created to sort of eliminate. Probably, yeah, definitely was a very hopeful view, but I think that's very like striking how it, you know, it rose as a tool, as a concept that showed the promise of, you know, being able to bring real involvement on a horizontal way, and instead it became even more concentrated, even more vertical.
And polarized.
And
right?
polarized, absolutely. And polarizing.
The platform story is terrible. Yeah. Now, going to a confusion of my own. Daria, you're a cybersecurity expert, and these days on the news, it has been really a lot of hype over this situation with Mythos, the new AI from Claude, which was released only to Microsoft, to Apple, to these big companies, because in theory, with this new tool, you could prompt the AI to, hey, help me to, you know, transfer a few hundred from JP Morgan account to my own. Jamie Dimon wouldn't notice, and suddenly we are all little hackers at the unimaginable scale. This, of course, poses the question, like, are we in a heightened era of cyber risk? Can we do anything to protect against these new monsters, for that matter? And in particular, what companies should be doing about this situation? Right,
of course. So first, like maybe very personal comment, like I think it's inevitable nowadays when it comes to AI that every new development, every new evolution, it gets very sensationalized, and especially, I mean, I think that news outlet and information systems should do much better than what they're doing now, instead of like capitalizing.
So you think this is hype?
I'm not saying it. Here's the thing. I'm saying that there should be, I mean, from how I see it, there should be definitely more ethical approach to journalism and how they report these kind of news. Because on one hand, definitely I understand that with every major AI development, it triggers a mix of hype and a mix of hope, if anything, and a mix of panic. Because, you know, AI in itself is such a concept that is so radicated in our fantasies that it's inevitable that every little thing, you know, spikes interest and attention. But and it is valid in ways that tools like Mythos do raise questions like the potential that they have to lower the barriers to entry for sophisticated cyber operations. Like, for example, they could facilitate phishing operation at a scale, or the identification of vulnerabilities in a much quicker and adaptable pace. Like, it's definitely valid. So it's not a misplaced or unwarranted concern, but at the same time, it's not, like, I wouldn't picture it as this incredible sudden turning point, because we are indeed already in a heightened situation of cyber risk, but not just because of this one new tool, but because now, and it's been, I don't want to say like it's been ages, but it's been a minute now that we find ourselves in a context in which, for example, cybercrime is, and a cyber criminal ecosystem is quite mature. Like, we see, for example, that cybercrime operations operate and move forward essentially like a business model. Like, they have supply chains and customer support. They have like pay to services to carry out like cyber criminal operations in many ways. We see in states that not only support but leverage on these threat actors in ways that we didn't even imagine possible. So the point is that what AI does and what these new tools do they amplify and accelerate these situations and these conditions, but they don't create them from scratch. Like this mythos, this new tool, and these new tools that are coming ahead, they're not like just sprouting out in a vacuum. And also like a very common concept in the security area, like in the security niche and within security operators, is that usually the offense is almost always a step ahead of the defense, and it's always like trying to bridge this gap and make it lower and lower, one step after the other.
What could companies do about this then, if this model is going out like crazy?
The good news that we have is that we're not, starting from zero. Like, for example, if we look at in Europe, we're starting to have, regulations and tools in place. For example, we look at the Digital Operational Resilience Act, so DORA to speak that. So we're trying to create frameworks that give support to institutions and companies to tackle these new contexts, and especially to truly and finally get the concept that security should be by design, should be in their business models, should be in their risk models, should be in their governance models and politics and policies. And we're starting to have quite important frameworks, and we also have international standards, and quite interestingly and coincidentally, at the Florence School of Banking and Finance, we're developing, and we're about to run in a couple of weeks courses that are aimed at these very topics and to provide support on this very topic on, how to manage cyber risk in the financial sector, and also how to tackle the requirements that the Digital Operation Resilience Act asks for from companies, and how it shapes the security of companies. So also, being mindful of these tools that are present in front of you.
We will put the link in bio.
Yeah, thank you. But I think that the bottom line would be not just protect yourself or be mindful of these new tools, but in general, integrate security in your strategy, and that what actually saves you or keeps you really resilient and secure in the long run, and not just keep an eye for the new thing.
Okay, so going back to this story of developing the infrastructure in Europe, when that is mentioned, what is what we are talking about in particular? Is it creating new apps, the European Facebook, the European TikTok, the European Instagram? What are we talking about? We lack the giants, correct? Or is it more to these debates that we are missing out?
Maybe I will just have a few thoughts, and then we can take it further. I think the Europe lagging behind, in technology, and especially when it comes to these big companies, and in some of the critical areas that Europe has, of course, has caught a lot of attention, right? Especially with the Draghi and Letta report and Inister report, but it's actually nothing so new. So it goes. I would say that this decline goes back a long way, because already 1994, I do not know how many remember the Bargeman report, which was actually a very critical report in Europe's digital development, because in a way it put ground to the digital single market.
I was like 5 years old. So
I was slightly more. And it also pushed for the liberation of telecommunication market, and as a result, we can also, almost all of us can enjoy in Europe, rather good internet with a rather good price. But it also called for Europe already then to make urgent action to keep up with then, of course, US and Japan, and I would say that perhaps China and maybe Gulf area and some other new players were not yet in the picture. So there's a lot of talk about it. There is quite a bit of action being done around our industry policy to support sort of our digital ecosystem that is very fragmented. And it has, of course, given rise to the digital sovereignty or all these discussions. However, when I look at what's behind these discussions, is it really sometimes seems to me that that Europe does not really know yet what it means and what it really needs to do. For example, in terms of the infrastructure, clearly, of course, we need investments and so forth. Because often I hear exactly what you said, that let's do something second best of what US is doing, or maybe what China is doing, and then it's really a question: is this Europe's sovereignty? If we have our own Microsoft Word or our own Facebook. So I would definitely hope that those who make decisions see further from this, not trying to copy our big friends.
Yeah. So I guess to boil it down to the essence, would you say something like, is it sufficient to have an app that everybody likes to use if the data is being stored in the US anyway? Because now in this context of geopolitical tension, this can get clearly weaponized. If the US gives an instruction to the hyperscalers, there are very significant risks, I imagine, in the financial system, for instance, which is what we care a lot about. And I mean, seems like a tough deal to overcome overnight. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, I will continue and then I give. So maybe just to continue, as you brought this cloud example, there are actually very many areas where Europe is not doing that bad, and I absolutely don't like also the narrative that has been born that Europe is bad, does not manage, it's in a decline, because that narrative does not help anybody, and it's not entirely true either. And actually the cloud area is one of these areas where Europe itself, I am sure within a few years' time, we have our infra where to keep our data. I think the question perhaps for me, currently supporting Commission looking at how Europe could cooperate with countries outside European Union. The question for me is, would we be competitive, at a global scale? But I believe that Europe's sort of own needs and interests, at least to cloud, I would say also connectivity. We have a great developments in satellite. I believe these investments are there, and I hope that this will also continue. But of course, put it in a global perspective, it's another story.
Yeah, no, essentially I agree completely to what you just said, and the cloud issue, the one that popped in my head, and talking about what we could be doing, Europe could be doing, and what Europe is actually doing, and that was the main thing that I was thinking about. That we're not positioned as bad as the general idea that flows around. But I think also like the bottom line is to understand the complexity of these dependencies that are around within at the global, because there's not obviously just the cloud. There's and understand like where actually we could make the impact. Cloud could be one of them, and where we could more or less concentrate our effort, because we also have, like, for example, the issues of semiconductors and chips, and we see already the two big players here, and would we actually, should we, involve into this kind of play, or again, like others, like, and that's more and physical related kind of issues, but like with the whole issues of cables and undersea cables. So if we want to look at it at a more like standard geopolitical chalk point kind of view. So
that's what we're talking about when we say infrastructure.
That is one way to put it, yeah.
Because to me, I mean, I'm talking from the simple perspective of the regular guy that is happy with his little chatbot. But people here say, no, we could do more than a chatbot. But what more? Like, I don't know, those robots that dance and then they fall and they are funny. Like, what are the AI developments that are at the edge or at the frontier that we are probably missing out? Then we could be doing more about it, I guess. Because I always hear this, but I think that my mind is not there yet. So maybe you can help the audience also on board into these new discussions that we're having.
I mean, I understand like the hype in wanting to involve within the, that you see the new tools, the new model, the new system, and you feel like we're lagging behind. But like we were saying, we're still, there are some areas in which we are, pushing through. And I also think, like, again, this brings me to my initial point. Do we really want to just focus, see technology as just like the pursuit of innovation without actual involvement? Like, should we actually maybe focus before, the new tool, the new model, the new system, should we focus to create a starting ground from which the new model, the new system, the new tool is not just coming, from the top down, but actually not bottom up, but at the very least there's an actual involvement, and we ensure that once this new tool, this new model comes out, then people actually use it, because otherwise this new thing comes out and we see the same asymmetry, then we see the same difference and the same gaps in people using it, not using it, or being involved, and not just within a country, but also the other differences in countries wide and globally. So I think that's also a talk that should be more popularized, and not just, let's develop the new model, the new tool, but also let's try to do it, in
a way that people uses it.
People that way use it and benefit from it, actually.
Do you have another take on this, Nele? Or because I have another different question.
Shoot.
I wonder, what does it mean to do digital diplomacy? Can you explain that, please?
Yes, I was thinking about it when I was walking up the hill, and maybe I would say that digital diplomacy is like any other area in diplomacy. So it's basically a foreign service or external action, making sure that its country and people are protected, they are doing economically well, they are happy, they are healthy. But so in this sense, I wouldn't separate digital diplomacy from, I would say, areas that have been in foreign service, so foreign affairs for longer time, democracy, security, trade, even climate. So in a way, it's like any other area. But what complicates it, of course, is that digital is not a thing in itself. So it's always interconnected with some area. It's connected with security, it's connected with economic affairs, it's trade, so development. So I would say that from this perspective, digital diplomacy in a way is an umbrella that connects all these different policy areas. But perhaps to better maybe illustrate it, it's maybe good to see look at some of the reasons why it has become, especially last years, so important and increasingly higher in agenda. We have talked about, of course, the misuses of technologies. So I would say that when I started in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Estonia, we had the cyber ambassador and the digital ambassador, and cyber was supposed to deal with all the dark things and the bad things, and I was supposed to be on the brighter side. But over the time, I have to say that I also got a lot of gray shades also in my work, because
how so?
Because it's simply quite a bit of focus turned to technology governance at large, how we govern data, how we govern, for example, sharing of data globally. So a lot of questions merged, I would say, within this time. But there is the other reason also mentioned, which is the big tech, and that is actually quite new to diplomats. So, I mean, historically, diplomats talk with other governments, other diplomats, and then they solve their issues or they don't solve their issues. But now you have a situation where actually the companies may have a lot more power than your entire government, or their budgets or the turnovers are much higher than your entire state budget. So this puts actually a new situation, and I would say that it's new not only to diplomats, but it's also new actually to the private sector also to be in this power relation, and with power also comes accountability. So it's in a way, I would say, a new situation. And then I'd say increasingly is also how to make sure that your government makes partnerships with players to bring knowledge and skills to your country, to make sure that the private sector, let's say in Estonia or Denmark or Netherlands, still has the capacity to be competitive globally. And I would say that this is an increasing focus. And here, at the moment, we are still in the situation where, maybe in the ideal world, we would like to bypass Google and Amazon and Microsoft and all the other companies. But in reality, we do need to find ways to partner with them, because they have the knowledge and skills, and often the best knowledge and skills.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would imagine it's quite difficult to interact once you're used to the type of interactions and balances that you have with the government. And I would think now you have a new actor in which the same tools, the same strategies, the same discourse doesn't work. So I would imagine it's quite a difficult and a new area to navigate. So.
Yeah. So, but I think this new situation also puts collaboration and partnerships and alliances, I would say, even higher, and it's very important. So it's important at the diplomat level. So, for example, I worked very closely with what we call like-minded. So when I needed to form a position, I didn't have enough knowledge or capacity or skills, I would turn to my colleagues in other countries. So we had a lot of knowledge-sharing partnerships, but also we talked about Europe. I think Europe needs also to see how to better couple up with, Japan, Korea, Canada, make sure that we do something useful together. So.
And what are you doing right now at the EU level, Nele?
I am currently leading Knowledge Hub Digital. It's to use EU slogan or vocabulary, it's a technical assistance facility, but I would say it's like an internal think tank. So it supports 3 directorates, INPA, NS, MENA. You can look at these abbreviations, but basically it's how Europe collaborates with partners outside European Union, and not developed or also technologically developed countries like Japan, Korea, US, but Africa, Asia, Latin America. And in this context, there is a big question. What does Europe offer vis-a-vis other players? So whereas it might be clearer what we do for Europe, how we make sure that our needs are covered by European, our own partners, it's a bigger question what we offer.
What we offer in terms, for example, of a firm that wants to settle in Europe?
No, the other way around. So, for example, how we make sure that more European practice, expertise, European companies go outside Europe.
Okay, that's interesting.
And because it's
for
also
instance,
a big, it's one of the instruments also of foreign policy.
No, I can imagine. Because, for instance, these problems, we tackled them at the Florence School of Banking and Finance also from a perspective of it is crucial to complete the Capital Markets Union to create stronger funding for these companies that once they escalate, they don't need to go public in the US, and we can keep our champions in-house, let's say. So that's how I would frame that debate normally in my default assumptions, let's say.
It's just the other way, so that you keep these European companies here in Europe instead of them, getting, foreign investment because of the terms going somewhere else. But this is really now looking at, for example, I would say that this independence and sovereignty, it's not just a question for Europe. I would say almost every country that I have talked to has the same question: how we build digital infrastructure, how we build our connectivity so that we would not become dependent on one or the other or third big player. How we do that. And there are not good answers currently in the world, but doesn't mean that they are not looking for it. And I would say also from my experience with the global partners that they very much actually value this Europe's experience with not just regulations, but different frameworks that we have in place for data sharing, for recognizing each other's digital signatures and identity. So Europe has a lot of experiences, and it has been also a smart adopter of new technologies. So there are possible ways of collaboration.
Interesting. And one last thing on this, and then I pass to another question. Collaboration, is it hard with these big players? Because you say that I guess diplomacy also involves the private sector, right? And going with Amazon, I guess, Apple, not only the European champions, correct? Or how does this collaboration work in practice?
I think when there is a need from both sides, and both sides can see that they win something from this collaboration, I think it is possible. But of course and the good example is actually the collaboration between private sector and public sector. For example, after the war in Ukraine, this really pushed for sharing on information between governments and private sector to really fight, let's say, bad forces quite a bit. But of course, we cannot keep our eyes shut. We have also bad intentioned players out there, and there the collaboration might be more difficult. And I would say that probably recent political developments also a little bit influences.
It's difficult now to know who is an ally, let's put it that way. But this is my final question probably on this issue, which is, it is always said that countries, for instance, in Eastern Europe, have the ability to leapfrog, especially when it comes to banking and finance. The developments are quicker, regulators are more dynamic, supervision too. Do you see this phenomenon? How does, and if it's true, what does it explain, this tendency to leapfrog?
Maybe from Estonian experience, I can say that we in a way leapfrogged because we wanted to make a breakthrough, and we were really open to the use of these new technologies. But when I look around and when I look where the innovation comes, it does come quite a bit from Northern Europe also, but Eastern Europe, especially now Ukraine, also with a practical need to innovate. So then they have not just innovated, let's say, public service provisioning. They have also innovated their defense industry entirely because of the practical need.
Okay. Do you have anything on the? Did we left something out, Daria? Do you have any reactions?
I think not. I think we've been covering quite all of the relevant bases, I think, quite in a very interesting way also.
Okay, so we can now go to our strangest fact of the week, which is the favorite part that we share with the strangers. And I may start with something that I found pretty strange, which was the house of Sam Altman being attacked with a Molotov. And then the guy posted something on his Substack like, oh, this was so bad because the press is talking bad about me because of this article that was published in the New Yorker. So the guy basically got a Molotov in the house and then he was blaming it on the press. And I felt this was pretty strange because we see the Luddites coming back to life and also the societal backlash, this thing that we started to discuss about the democratic developments of this technology. And I felt it was pretty strange. I felt like vibes of, Luddites coming back is a bit weird. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but also, I mean, everything that revolves around Sam Altman, it's incredibly strange and bizarre. Like, you just say his name and whatever pops out around. And in general, all of these figures are like really odd, which makes you think, But yeah. That was my very, very professional comment on it.
And what was the strangest fact that you saw this week?
The strange fact that I saw this past week, if anything, because we're just Monday now, so we'll see what else comes this week. It's a bit definitely on the sillier side. I saw like some, and not more relating to the robotics development, and I've been seeing a lot of news and videos and updates revolving around on robotics, and it's just a silly thing like this. We're talking about the new innovation and, you know, the development and where AI and technologies and everything would take us. And then we look at what we would think are the peak of technological innovation, like robotics. And we see, like, for example, there's like this actual sort of robot, for lack of a better term, that's been developed from a Polish company. And what it does is essentially, like in a video that's been showed, like I think a couple of days ago, it's just following rabbits around. So, you know, I think we, like, to relate also, to circle back on the whole, like, scare of mythos and everything, I think we're fine for a while now. Like, I don't think we're about to be taken over by Android yet. So, yeah, that was my thing.
So incredible. I'm watching here the video. Unfortunately, I cannot feature it in the stream, but I seen the wild boar running after the pigs.
Right.
No, the robot running after a wild boar.
Oh, right. I thought it was I remembered a bunny. I don't know why. It seemed funnier in my mind.
Which is worse. Like, it's not a bunny.
Probably worse.
They're really tough, these guys. You know, going after a wild boar, I don't think I will dare. I think that's pretty strange.
Yeah, definitely strange, but also, you know, it just makes you think that maybe we don't need to panic all that much yet.
Damn. And you, Nele?
Yes, I didn't come across anything related to our today's topic, but I did read, which I found strange, that they found rat poison in baby food. But then I shared it, actually. I tasted it last evening.
The poison baby food?
Yes, the rat poison in baby food. And actually, my yesterday's dinner companions had heard of it already before, so maybe that's actually quite common.
Oh my God, let's hope not, actually. Wow.
Oh my God, babies are in danger.
Wow.
So now, this is the moment when we go through the strangeometer. Who brought the strangest fact? And I'm going to start with some punctuation. I think you, Daria, have a 10, because that was pretty strange. I get a 9, and Nele gets a 9 too.
Oh.
Because, you know, rat poisoning is not everyday life.
Yeah, hopefully it isn't. Luckily it isn't.
And how would you rate the strangeometer of the facts?
I would rate yours, Leopoldo, I would say a good 8, because I think it's a long time coming, especially for some Outman. I would rate the rat poison thing also a 9, in the sense that it's not that common, and hoping, that it's not as common. And I would rate mine a 9 as well, I think.
So you tied everybody.
Yeah.
999.
999.
What are your ratings, Nele?
I would agree with your rating.
Okay, so I think I win. I win the strangest prize. So thank you very much for coming. It has been a pleasure.
I think Daria would win.
Yeah, I got a 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not fair. I should be winning. It's my show.
No, exactly. It's your show. Be a kind host.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. It has been a pleasure that you join us once again in this show. And another round of applause for our guests.
Thank you.
The part that you really like.
Too nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.